Well, hey guys, welcome back to the Stand with Foursquare Mancast. We are jumping right back into the Book of Judges. We're winding this down, actually. We are in chapter 16, and we're coming to the conclusion of Samson's story. And we see there, right at the end, man, it has a kind of a gnarly ending.
An anticlimactic ending.
Yeah, and Samson, he finds himself, and he's hitting rock bottom. He's seized, he's shaved, his eyes are gouged out. He's the mockery of all Philistines. And as we come to this topic, Tim, I gotta be completely honest. I feel totally inadequate to have this conversation. Because in my life, I guess I've been really, really fortunate, or maybe insulated or protected, that there's never really been a season for me where I feel like I've hit absolute zero, rock bottom, and just devastation of life. I'm really grateful for that. But also I read through this and I'm just like, I know people have hit rock bottom.
Yeah.
And compassion, all those things, but also like a little sickening in me is like, I'm so glad I'm not them. I'm so glad I haven't got there.
Well, I think that's great. And it's the story of Samson is actually, it's an anti-hero story. We talked about that. It's not from Samson's victories to victories to victories. It's from his low points to his low points to his low points to his low points.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when you think of rock bottom, here's what I realized. When you think you're at rock bottom,
there's probably another
there's
level.
still, as I've just matured in my life, as I thought I was there, like, oh, it can get worse.
Yeah.
And then it can get worse. And you can think of that as like, oh man, but here's what I'm even learning right now in this last year is actually the places of weakness and where I thought it was really, really rough was actually God's gracious hand to prepare me to deal with the next difficult thing that was coming my way.
Yeah.
Like when you're growing up, first grade prepares you for second grade prepares you to third grade. It shouldn't be super hard when you get from, sixth grade to seventh grade. And I think if we actually are following Jesus and living life that, hey, that rock bottom difficult season actually prepares you for the next season.
Yeah.
Samson doesn't learn any good lessons. It's an anti-hero story. But this, it's his wife is murdered and killed, given to his friend. Yeah. Then it's just like all these, it's the way down.
Downward spiral from beginning to end.
And then there's just a little, like if we were to graph the story of Samson, it's bad, 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 really bad. And then his hair began to grow. Yeah. There's a little uptick, but it's not, it doesn't get to a higher point than I think the place where it starts. And that's the great lesson of Samson is it could have been so much different.
Yeah. And you also see a little bit in there that as much as this is a story about Samson, it's a narrative of Samson. I think towards the end, we realize this is less a story of Samson and more a story of God still has a plan, and that he's the central character of all of Scripture. And it's interesting to see how man may hit rock bottom, but God's still faithful in the midst of that. And what do you think helps us see God's faithfulness when we're dealing with our rock bottom, or we're dealing with our, dark night of the soul?
Yeah.
What helps us see, man, God's still in charge. He's still faithful and kind. He's the main character of the story. How do we see that through the midst of our difficult situations? Yeah,
I don't know if Samson ever really sees it until the very end. Mm-hmm. Right. And he prays, he calls out to God and he says, God, if you would be gracious to me, and would you, that gift that you put on me and I neglected and didn't value and didn't care, the gift of strength, but if one last time you would be gracious to me and give me the strength that you've given me. And he pushes down the thing and destroys the people of God. But like you said, the story is of God working with his people. And even the book of Judges is the story of God and his people. Mm-hmm. And Samson's a character of how God chooses to fulfill his purposes in this season. And whether we like it or not, we're not the central character in our own stories. Mm-hmm. And you know what? We've used that phrase a lot. Toxic masculinity is when you think you're the hero in your story. Yeah. And everyone is here to serve me, and everyone is here to fulfill my storyline. No one wants to be around that person. But if we understand, hey, it's my job to be a hero maker. Do you remember that church planting conference we went to years ago? Yeah. And that was the whole theme of that church planting conference is that, man, even in the life of a pastor and planting churches, is that our job is to make heroes, not for us to be the hero.
Yeah.
And I think that's Samson's, even in the end of Samson's life, he's considered in the hall of faith and he's looked favorably. Mm-hmm. But you read the story and it's so how do we know that God's with us in the midst of it? The place I go to is Luke 15 and the 3 stories where Jesus talks about things that are lost and are found. And it ends with the prodigal son. And if you're familiar with the story, this man has 2 sons, an older son and a younger son. The younger son says, I wish you were dead, Dad. I want my inheritance now. I don't want to sit around and wait for you to die. His dad, crazily, like it was just nuts that he did this. He sells his possessions and gives his son the cash. His son runs off, squanders all of his wealth. He's at rock bottom. He's in the pigsty. And one thing to notice is like the dad's not looking for him.
Yeah.
Right. But the scripture says, and Jesus tells the story, says, when the young man came to his senses.
Yeah.
And said, my father's hired hands are eating better than I am. I wish I could eat the food that I'm feeding the pigs, but the guy I'm working for won't even give me food. The pigs are more important than I am. He comes to his senses. And I think that's where God always wants to intervene in us, is say, when you come to our senses. So we don't want the rock bottom, but I wonder if God uses the rock bottom is when we come to our senses.
Yeah.
And so we're all trying to avoid, like, maybe you've just been working really hard to avoid the rock bottom, Jonathan.
Absolutely. Yes.
But it's at the rock bottom that we come to our senses. And that's where, like, God, I see you in all this. And that's the journey. That's when the younger son, he makes that pivot point and he starts making his way back home. And then that whole story unfolds of, man, restoration, kill the fatted calf, put a ring on his finger. And then the older brother's like, I'm grumpy. I don't want to make this happen. And that's the tension point for all of us is I want people to suffer the consequences of their sin.
Yep.
And God says, I want to forgive people for the consequences of their sin.
Yeah.
And so that makes us, I think, look at that much differently. As an older brother, younger brother, Samson, we could just look at Samson. It would be easy to do a sermon series on how to suck like Samson. Like, I mean, you just all the things not to do. Here's a whole anti-story.
Yep.
But yet, right in Hebrews, the great writer of Hebrews, who we don't know, but who lists all the great narrative of Samson's in that list.
Yep.
Like, how do we compute with that? This guy, last episode, he was with a prostitute. How do you cancel culture? How does this guy?
Is there more rock bottom?
How does this guy get on the Hall of Faith? This is like, and it's not just once; it's multiple, like a whole lifestyle. Like, okay, God's up to things that are just different than. But come into your senses. That's what I would say.
So with that, the story of the prodigal son. In that, I guess you could kind of look at there's probably more, but I'm gonna create a dichotomy here where there's 2 types of ways to hit rock bottom. You hit rock bottom and you do what the prodigal son did. It says he came to his senses. He realized something in himself. And then there's another way to hit rock bottom where there's zero self-recognition and zero self-awareness and zero accountability. And you say, if only this person would have treated me differently, if only this person would have given me an opportunity, if only this would have not happened. And it's very blame oriented. I'm only at rock bottom because you put me here or because you didn't give me an opportunity.
Well, that would be a great indicator you're not at rock bottom.
You're probably not at rock bottom.
Because at the end of here's what that younger son realizes. This wasn't my dad's fault. It was my fault. I'm accountable for my life.
Yeah.
And probably the younger brother was like, I'm not the younger brother. My big brother gets everything. It's, life's not fair. Go eat worm. That. But when he comes to his senses, he's like, oh, this is me. Yeah. This is my fault.
Yeah.
I got to own it.
Yeah. That's good. I think you said something else there that rock bottom's not really comfortable. It's not a good place that we want to find ourselves.
Have you ever had great comfort sitting on a rock?
No,
they're kind of sharp
quite.
And bony and hard.
Hard to find comfort there.
It's not. I hit rock sofa.
Yeah. So, evaluate me maybe a little bit, or just culture. Why do we fight so hard?
Jonathan, do you really want the answers to this? Do you really want the answers?
Let's dive in. Let's go deep here. Why do we fight so hard to avoid pain? And why do we fight so hard to avoid hitting rock rock bottom.
Yeah. Well, one, nobody loves pain, but I think there's been a cultural narrative, especially for millennials and beyond, that if there is something wrong or you're experiencing resistance or there's pain in your life, something's wrong. We have idolized comfort and safety. It's the helmet generation. It's all, if you do these things, nothing bad will happen to you. It's just not true.
Yep.
Like just a couple of months ago this summer, my wife and I we haven't done this in years. We went on a pleasure drive one Friday evening. It's like, what should we do? Like, we're just going to drive up to Mount Vernon and get ice cream. And we're driving up the road. Everything's great. And this deer pops out of nowhere and ends up totaling my truck. And it was like, wah, wah, wah. It was the worst time to make this happen. But it shocked me because I realized, man, life is just fragile. Like the car was destroyed. We were fine. But man, just going on a pleasure drive, like we could have gotten a crash. We could have died. Like, I mean, anything could have happened. I haven't hit a deer in 20 years.
Yeah.
But totally random, out of my control. I'm going to get ice cream, a fairly innocent thing, and could have had dramatic consequences on our lives. So we just have to recognize that our lives are fragile. And when we think we're at the rock bottom, and that pain is not necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah.
And Job, we're even going to talk about this here as we're talking Job. I don't know if that'll be out when we'll be done with Job, but Job says this. He says that suffering requires wisdom, and done right, suffering will produce more wisdom.
Yeah.
And so there's a lack of wisdom, I think, in people who haven't suffered. Yeah, because you want to avoid pain, and if something's wrong, then something's wrong.
Yep.
But life's hard.
Yeah, life is difficult.
There are thistles that work against your work. It's part of the curse.
Yeah. So pain is not an indicator of problem. Pain is just an indicator
of the broken world we live in.
Of the broken world that we live in.
Yeah, and even this, I think we misunderstood even the context of the curse in Genesis. It doesn't say, and now there will be pain in childbirth. It says now there's going to be much pain in childbirth.
Increased pain.
And it doesn't say that you wouldn't work. It says, but now by the sweat of your brow. So your work, you were still going to work. Adam and Eve were not just, fat angels playing harps. They were working. Yeah. But now there's opposition to the work. Now there's great pain in it. And I think we have this mentality of this utopic ideal that it's just me and God and we're hanging out. And this is even the view of heaven, that we're going to rule and reign with him. That doesn't mean we got stuff to do.
Yeah.
It's an active process and resistance. And we're not safe.
Yeah. Like God wants to use your rock bottom if you'll allow him. There's a verse in Romans that for a long time I loved, and then for a season I hated, and now I'm back to loving it again. And I think I've had a complicated relationship with it because I think I've seen people use it, and it just hasn't been helpful. You say it when people are going through a difficult season, and what do you tell them? I was like, well, God works all things together for the good of those who love him, right? And you say that verse to people when they're going through that was devastating. They've just lost somebody. It's devastating.
Not helpful.
But what if you took that verse and you said, hey, you know what? If you're willing to let God take your rock bottom and you actually trust him with it, what good could he bring from this devastating situation? And ultimately, I think if you go on to read Paul before that verse and after that verse, what he's talking about is forming you in the image of Jesus.
Yeah.
And it takes some pain to be formed. Like it takes some work, it takes some effort, it takes hard things. And so for you, like what's been good forming in you? What's been some pain that maybe Jesus is, maybe unfair. I get to ask questions apparently and putting you on the spot.
There's been a lot of things, but so one of the premises, I remember I was a young pastor, and I can't remember who the theologian is. It's some great preacher like Spurgeon. I shouldn't even say who it is because I can't quote it specifically, but before God can really use a man, he must hurt him deeply. Mm-hmm. And I think that's even part of the nature of Jesus we see is until we experience the resurrection power of Jesus. And what happens is we have to die and experience the resurrection power of Jesus. So my story is a series of a bunch of experiencing my dreams and hopes dying and being reborn and experience the resurrection power of Jesus. Thought I was going to be a college pastor. Got fired.
Yeah.
All right, God, you have to give me I'm going to die to that dream. A lot of people don't know this. I was a worship pastor for 13 years at really large churches. I had grand, glorious dreams of, recording contracts and all these things. I just wasn't that good.
Yeah.
And guess what? That dream had to die. Mm-hmm. And just even in my tenure here, so we're talking about vocation, right? This is my vocation. I've had a lot of dreams about what I thought my vocation and what our church would be like. It's been way different than I've ever thought. In my marriage, almost 25 years in, this is not, I didn't know, right? So you plan and you dream, you just don't know. I think it's different, and it's probably better than what I've ever would have thought.
Yeah.
But it's different in my family, raising kids, having young kids, 20-year-old launching into the world. This is, there's just always stuff that comes in your life that's not part of the plan. And you can either avoid it, regret it, future trip. I think we do that a lot. I don't know if you find yourself looking at your phone and looking, the photo app that shows you all the stuff. Yeah. Like, I past trip about when the kids, it was so much easier when the kids so younger. Yeah. And do you remember those good old days? We either future trip or we past trip. It'll be better tomorrow. And I think one of the things that God is always inviting us to is to be present in the moment.
Yeah.
And if you're present in the moment, that's where God, his mercies are new every day.
Yep.
His mercies aren't for yesterday. They're not for tomorrow. It's what do you need today? You got to be present in your own life. You got to be present. And dudes, what do we do? I'm going to plan for this thing. I'm going to make this happen. And you miss so much stuff.
Yeah. And sometimes we don't like our situations. So we try everything we can to not be present in the day. We medicate, whatever, and try to go to the entertainment or past trip, future trip, all these things. And I think
I'm going to numb out. I'm just going to watch Netflix for the next 6 hours so I don't have to feel anything.
And I think we forget, one of the key truths of scripture we see time and time and time again, and Paul even says it perfectly in Romans, and I think we either like to gloss over it, ignore it, or pretend like it's not real. But he says we glory in our sufferings because we know that suffering produces perseverance.
Yeah.
Perseverance, character, hope, and hope does not put us to shame because God's love has been poured out on us. So suffering produces good things in us, not just we avoid the rock bottom because we think it's bad, it's horrible, it's evil. But maybe if we let God, he wants to redeem it, he wants to use it, and he wants to produce good things in our lives. Yeah, because of it.
You would think Paul's a psycho, like he's a masochist. He just wants to suffer. I was listening to a podcast a couple weeks ago, and it was about what was the point of it was all of the opioid crisis.
Okay.
So in OxyContin, everybody was taking these drugs, and in the late 90s, early 2000s, in all the medical journals, so the modern North American medical idea was that it's our job to alleviate all pain. And so this new drug, OxyContin, an opioid, was released, and I thought this is the miracle drug because now people won't have to live with pain, especially back pain.
Yep.
And we'll prescribe this to them, and so the medical community, the perpetuating mentality was we want to remove all pain.
Yep.
And it wasn't very long. And they were talking about some research that was done in Florida, which was the epicenter of this, especially with older folks and people with back pain, is the addiction of no pain consumed people. I've even worked with a couple of families who, guy went in for a back surgery, got some Oxy as prescribed, but got hooked. Mm-hmm. And it ended up costing him his business, his life, everything.
Yeah.
His wife, his business, everything. He actually died a couple years ago, totally alone from an addiction. Because it's like, I experienced a utopic no pain life, and I will do whatever it takes to live that utopic no pain life again.
Yeah.
And so I think that the avoidance of pain can become an addiction.
Yeah.
Versus Paul says, in this life you'll have troubles, but take heart, Jesus has overcome the world. That's what Jesus says. He doesn't say you're not going to experience any pain. And we want to live in that narrative of just give me some oxy, numb this pain for me.
Yep.
And I think what God invites us to in this world is like, hey, this pain is going to produce something in you if you'll let it.
Yeah. I was just reading the book, Emotional Healthy Leader by Pete Scazzaro. And towards the end, he talks about new beginnings. And he had this, gross. I hate it because it's so true and it's right. But he says you can't have the gospel without death.
Yeah.
Because the death of Christ is what brings about his resurrection. So ultimately, you can't have resurrection life without death. Something has to die.
Yeah.
And we can do whatever we want to try to make death less painful, less harsh. But the reality is, if I've had the unfortunate, I'll say privilege, of sitting with somebody while they've passed away, and it's gross, and it's not dignifying, and it's really ugly and messy and sad. Death is painful. Death is really hard. We want to avoid it at all costs. But I can't get over that line. We can't have resurrection. We can't have new life without death. And we do everything we can to avoid the rock bottoms, to avoid death, to avoid hard things. But what might God want to be bringing about? What new life might he want to bring? What resurrection might he want to bring if we allow him to bring about those hard things?
Jonathan, I sit with people all the time, and I just want to say, give up. You're living your life on life support. Man, there's a machine in you. There's like, you're getting paddled every 2 seconds. You got to, like, metaphorically, I'm not talking about this.
Yeah.
And if they would just surrender to the lordship of Jesus and take the invitation that Jesus said to his disciples, come and die.
Yeah.
On the other side of it is all the life and vitality, and they're just a sick person walking around. They're a walking zombie. They're a shell of what they're supposed to be because they won't die to the sin. They won't die to the things that just need to be surrendered. And there's areas of my life, probably why I see it in them so much. It's because it's true of me.
Yeah. Yep.
And I'm like, shock that. I can make through this. I can fight through this. I can make that happen. If I would just be like, I give up, God.
I give up.
I surrender. Kill that in me. Kill that in me. God, I want that to die. And if we get to that point, then on the other side of it is the life that we long for, and the paradox of the gospel. Yeah. The paradox, come and die and you'll find life. Yeah. If you want to find life, come and die.
Yeah. It's like the pain of where we are has to be greater than the pain of change in order for us to be willing to take the step to change, right?
Yeah. I can't convince you to change until it's more painful to not change. I mean, that's just whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like it's that, Jonathan, I can convince you 1,000 times. I can tell you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do this. But until you're saying, oh, if I just keep doing this, that pain's greater than actually experiencing something new, vitality, you'll just keep doing the same.
And I think every now and then, some of us, even maybe listening to this podcast, we may have been fortunate enough to every now and then we hear somebody who's gone before us, who's a little bit older than us. They've shared some wisdom with us of their experience. And we're like, you know what? I don't really want to ever experience that. So there's been times where we've listened and we've course corrected, and it didn't take catastrophic failure to make adjustments.
Yeah.
And I mean, what would you say? Because I don't think rock bottom is necessarily inevitable for everybody in every situation. There is wisdom. We can hear and receive.
Yeah.
What makes a heart, what are some conditions of the heart that makes us ready to receive wisdom so that we can avoid maybe some of the rock bottom situations that are out there?
I think it's humility. This Samson lacked any humility. He was not going to learn any lessons from anybody telling him. He was going to have to learn it his own way.
Yeah.
And some of us are just knuckleheaded.
I'm one of them.
Knuckleheaded, strong-willed, type A people that we're not going to learn it until we're bleeding all over the place.
Yeah.
But I think there's a better way. I think there's some lessons you have to learn that way. But if there can be a tenderness and a teachable spirit in you, the New Testament teaches us so much about this, that we have to have a teachable spirit. And it is something that faces against our pride, our egos, to just come to that place like, I don't know everything. there's some things I need help with. And if we're teachable, I think if we were perfectly teachable, maybe God wouldn't have to break us.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I could have learned those lessons if I had the maturity. But I'm also saying this is a great measure of grace for me. Is I've learned to have grace for myself, because what I'll do is I should have known that ahead of time. I should have known that, and I should myself.
Yeah.
Walk around should myself, and that's shame, right? Shoulda. But if I can say, hey, I've never been here before. Okay, I'm learning this. God, I don't know what to do. I need to go seek some advice and counsel. I need to read the scriptures. God, I want to pray. I want to ask what we should do. Then you're teachable.
Yeah.
And God can use teachable people.
Yeah.
That's what I've learned. The people in ministry who are the most talented, the people that God's used it's not always the most talented. It's not always the most gifted. It's not always the most charismatic. I really think it's the most, we say humble, but I would say it's the most teachable.
Yeah.
Who are willing to learn from their mistakes, avoid making critical, destructive mistakes, and being able to move forward and learn from that and get better and grow.
Yeah, I know. I got, so our Thursday morning Bible study, 7 a.m. every Thursday, group of great guys. I always say, like, I show up as one of the guys. I'm not the leader of the group. Randy Vandeveer is he's been leading the group for years, but also, like, there's a ton of really wise men that sit around those tables. And I think I stumbled into it. A couple years ago, I showed up and I'm like, this is really good. And I didn't know why it was so good, but I continued to keep showing up every single Thursday. And over the course of the last 5 years, I would love to say it was intentional, and I would love to say I had such a teachable heart and I did this with great intention, but it was kind of an accident where I kept showing up, and I've learned some of the best lessons that I've ever learned in my entire life of how to be a man, how to be a parent, how to be a husband, how to be a follower of Jesus, and avoid a lot of pitfalls just from sitting and listening to older guys who have made mistakes that are willing to share their mistakes. And it has been nuggets of wisdom that literally are invaluable.
Totally.
And I would offer to any, guys, if I'll speak to my demographic for just a second, like, hey, millennials, Gen Zers, like 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds younger, I would encourage you, find guys that are a little bit ahead of life, that have seen some things. Go sit with them, listen and learn. I know
they would love to share with you.
And they would love to share. Ask good questions and don't make assumptions that you know best. The times I've got myself in trouble in that groups are when I thought I knew something that I didn't know.
Well, and Jonathan, that you even can't, you're the pastor of the church. Like, you're the men's pastor. You could have come in there. I'm the guy, I'm the answer man. Submit to me, make this happen. But you came in humble, right? And that opened opportunity for, I know that it's filled with guys who are now your biggest advocates, right?
Yep.
Because you learned from them. Yeah. I teach one of my roles is I do a new lead pastor cohort when we put new pastors in churches. That's part of my role in our denomination. And I was just on a cohort call, was it last Wednesday night? And they've asked me to do some content about financial organizational leadership. And so I did this and I did 2 sessions. And in the evening session on a Zoom call, there was this couple who they knew everything. And it was the most painful hour and a half of my life. I was just like, hey, they asked me to teach you some things, and your church is 17 people. You do not know everything. And they didn't ever ask me one question. They interrupted the group and they shared all of their great insights from, they've been there 6 weeks and they have 17 people, and they are God's gift to humanity of organizational pastoral leadership. And you know what I left that night with? I thought, either God's going to have to crush them, or we're going to close that church because they're not teachable.
Yeah.
So, you are not as awesome as you think you are.
Yep.
And most of us, that's not how we really feel. That's how we live to cover up our insecurities. Yeah. And even the older dudes, this is what you learn too. They're insecure just like you're insecure. Yep. And they don't want to assert yourself in your life. Like, I'm old, I don't have anything to offer. But if you ask, right, Proverbs talks about this, that wisdom is like a buried treasure. Yeah. and you got it, and you want to hit rock bottom, right? Where's the gold? I love watching like Gold Rush.
Yeah.
You know, where's gold is nearest the rock bottom.
Yeah.
It's near the rock solid surface, the bottom, right? That's where the best gold is. And so the closer we get to the bottom, the more the treasure. And I think the more that we can mine that out, and you've got to, like, even a mine, like, I don't know if you watch Gold Rush, but you know, you go through tons and tons and tons of dirt to get a couple ounces of gold, which is almost $4,000 an ounce right now. Anybody want to go to Alaska and mine with me? Let's go do it. But you got to go through a lot of, what do they call it? Worthless overburden.
Okay. Yeah.
To get to the precious metal. And so it takes work. It takes purpose. They burn a lot of fuel. They burn a lot of machinery. They run through a lot of things to get the few precious things. And that requires being teachable. Another Discovery Channel junkie right here is, Freddie Dodge's, or no, the guy who goes in gold rescue, he goes and helps people learn how to mine gold because he's been doing it forever, and they're struggling, they're mining and they're not getting anything. They're spending all the money but not getting anything in. And he goes in and he teaches them, and they help them refine their process. And the people who don't want to learn, they're like, screw it, I'm here to help you, and I'm volunteering my time, and I know something, and you just want to do it your way, versus the people like, hey, we've been trying our way and it hasn't worked, will you help us?
Yeah.
And the people who do that, man, it's amazing to watch. These experts come in like, yeah, let's help you. They'll volunteer their time. They're supposed to pay, some out. Like, we'll volunteer time because you asked us what we thought.
Yep.
As I'm getting to be an older guy, the most meaningful things is when someone comes and asks me what I think. Oh, I'm like, you actually really care what I have to say? Raising young adult children, like, I can no longer tell them what I think all the time. But when, like, my two sons in their 20s call and say, hey, Dad, what do you think about them? I'm like, oh my gosh, you really care what I have to say. Like, it's so meaningful. So hunt for that treasure.
Yeah.
You don't have to get your head against the wall. Be wise, be humble, learn. And as you said, it's going to be the greatest. I think that will be one of the greatest treasures in your life is these years of Thursday morning, getting up early with these kind of some are old curmudgeons.
If you're listening, I didn't say that.
We love you.
Yeah.
But some of them are the greatest men in our church.
Yep.
And I think they'd probably be more comfortable if you led. Right? There's always that tension. Like, Jonathan, you just tell us what to do. But when you intentionally have restrained your position, your strength, you have all the authority, right? You could do whatever you want. But when you said, no, I'm going to restrain my authority, my strength, and there's something I have here to learn, then there's been a treasure that's been deposited in your life.
Absolutely. Yep. So guys, we're either going to learn from hitting rock bottom or learn from wisdom. I think God can use both. I think God will use both.
Choose wisdom, please.
Choose wisdom.
It's less bloody.
Yeah. Well, guys, thanks again for tuning in. And we're excited to continue this journey through the life of Samson. So keep tuning in.
Love you, believe in you. Keep showing up.